Hi Team C, this is Mrs. Butch again. I wanted to let you guys know that the teachers are missing you guys. We miss seeing you at school. We hope that you are doing well and getting your schoolwork done and also taking some time to just take care of yourself and your family. So hello again. Just really letting you guys know that we hope we see you soon. But since we have to get on with some schoolwork, I want to talk today about the excerpt that we read. And if you are watching this video, you are watching it because you have already done a few things. So the first thing that you have done is that you have watched the background video. It was in YouTube. You've watched it about Malcolm X. So you know a little bit about the person who he was, and you know about his life a little bit. And you know that he didn't really always agree with Dr. King. He had a different strategy, and that's okay too. And then you are watching this video because you listened to me read aloud the excerpt to you, and we went over how the article is set up, like with the double underlining and the boxes and all that stuff. So now you are watching this video because what we will do now is we'll go ahead and start in on these questions. So while in the other video, we focused on what was over here in this column, in today's video, we are going to now get into these questions over here, and we'll be in the right column. Okay, so as I stated in my last video, this is a very, very difficult excerpt. Malcolm X was extremely intelligent. He had views that you may or may not agree with. It does not matter. But he writes in a way that is both amazing and very difficult. So what we will attempt to do is break down the article so that you can truly understand it. I'm wondering if you really understood it when I read it to you. You may not have, and that's okay. Did you kind of get, though, that the overall gist of what Malcolm X is trying to tell us is that he really, really, really disagreed with the general opinion that the March on Washington was a success and that it did all kinds of good? He very strongly disagreed with that. So now we kind of need to go through the article, and we will take a look at what is his evidence for that. What are his reasons that he thought that this thing, remember, he didn't just think that it was like, you know, not a big deal, it didn't work. He called it a joke. And that's, you know, those are pretty extreme words, in my opinion, for him to say, for him to call this thing a joke, you know, something that Dr. King organized and all of these people came to, and it was a huge big deal. Malcolm X is like, yeah, that was a joke. So it's pretty significant, in my opinion. All right, but let's get started in on these questions. Okay. So as you notice, the first three things that we have here are just little vocabulary words that you needed to know. So let's get into question number 4. Question number 4 matches up with the number 4 over here in the article. It's right here. And remember, this is an excerpt from Malcolm X's biography, so what you have here is exactly how it looked in his book. So question number 4 over here, I'm right here. Question 4 says, why does Malcolm X refer to integration in quotation marks? That's exactly how it appeared in the text in his book. So I have it here for you. Why do you think he put integration in quotation marks? Let's go back and let's just read right here. Not long ago, the black man in America was fed a dose of another form of the weakening, lulling, and diluting effects of so-called integration. What does an author want the reader to understand when they put something in quotation marks? Remember, Mrs. Messer and I have kind of showed you like air quotes before. What do those things indicate? Why does a person use those? Why would an author use that? Think about that for just a second before I kind of help you get the answer. And friends, if you don't already have it out, I'm sorry that I forgot to tell you for today's lesson. Right now, you need this paper out of your home instruction kit and you need a pencil. So it seems like those things, hopefully you already had out, but I didn't even tell you that. So I wanted to make sure that you have those things out if you don't have them out already. All right, so getting back to our question, why is integration in quotation marks? Well, if we kind of take a look here, I really believe that Malcolm X does not feel like this was real integration at all. He is being very sarcastic and he's letting everyone know that this was made up, it wasn't the real thing, it was only one day and it's not going to last. So the gist of it would be that this is not real integration. You might want to pause this video so that you can write down that answer on your paper. Okay, so hopefully you have that answer written down and we can move on to the next one, which is item number 5. So as you can see, item number 5 is over here in the text. Why do you think that Malcolm X called the march a farce? Why did he call it a joke? Why was it so unimportant and trivial to him? What do you think? This is just a prediction that you can make. I'll show you my answer in a second here, but you listened to the article once. You may not have understood everything about it, but what do you think made it such a joke to Malcolm X? Why do you think he felt that it was unimportant and not worth his time, perhaps? I'll give you a second to think about that. Think about an answer. And then I'm going to show you mine here in just a second. All right, in my opinion, I think that Malcolm X felt that the march was a joke because it produced no real change. Later on, it was actually on the backside, he lets us know that no one important, no one that had any power, no senators or representatives, no one changed their mind because of this march. No one saw all the people in Washington and changed the way they felt. They were still opposed to integration if they already were. So Malcolm X is letting us know that he thinks that this didn't work. It didn't produce any change. Nothing was different because of the march. I think there are other answers. So if you were thinking of something else, I think that's okay too. This is why I feel that he thought the march was a joke. Okay, next we'll go ahead and move on to question number 6. And as you can see, question number 6 is right here. And the passage that we need to really pay attention to answer question number 6 is the underlined portion right over here. Okay, so I'll read this first to you. So, what originally was planned to be an angry riptide, one English newspaper aptly describes now as the gentle flood. So if we take a look at our question after having read that small portion, the question wants us to identify, and specifically we are looking for who is being compared in the gentle flood. So this is a comparison that Malcolm X makes, and he must be comparing two different groups. He is letting us know that there's a real disparity between how people should have been acting and how they actually acted. So let me give you just a few seconds, pause the video right now, and see if you can maybe come up with your own answer for this, and then we will, I'll tell you my answer. So pause the video and see what you're thinking. That means that you might need to reread this a few times to yourself. You might need to try and understand it, but really, if you're getting the most out of your learning right now, you will pause the video and you will try and answer this question, even if it's only in your head. You don't have to write anything down yet. Okay, so this will actually end up being probably the longest answer that you have on the entire page, and I've got it written right here for you. So if we really take a look at what Malcolm X wrote right over here, we'll see that he's trying to tell us that people should have showed up at the march angry. and very mad at the way that they had been treated for this whole long time when there was segregation and when there was, this hatred in America. They should have been very, very angry. They should have been so angry that they show up that way because they want change that bad. What he tells us actually happened is that they showed up in a gentle flood of people, and I'm inferring that he is calling them a flood because of the number of people that were there, and they actually showed up very peacefully. You can see here the words, the gentle flood. That means that there were a lot of people that showed up, but they didn't storm around and they didn't use violence. They showed up just very peacefully and gently, almost like just like a wave of peaceful flowing water. I'm just imagining, because over here he uses the words angry riptide. So instead of them being an angry riptide, they actually show up as a gentle flood. If you have ever been in the ocean and you've ever felt, hopefully you've never felt a riptide because they're very, very dangerous. But riptides happen in the ocean, and they are so serious and dangerous that they can cause people to drown. So he is telling us that that's how people should have showed up, very angry and very upset. And instead, they show up, in this gentle, peaceful way. And he does not think that was helpful. So right now you might want to pause the video and write down your answer to question number 6. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. All right, if we move on to number 7, I have to tell you that I think that this is actually one of my most favorite parts of this article. I love this article so much because I love how differently Malcolm X thought than Dr. King. Not because I agree with one more than the other, one man more than the other, but I love hearing both sides of the story because this truly removes the bias from the situation and it lets us see both sides. So one of the things that I did not know about the March on Washington until I read Malcolm X's account of the March on Washington was this piece of information right here. But it took me a few times reading this article and doing a little research before I fully understood what was going on. So I know that the underlined portion is what we'll use to answer this question over here, but I actually need to kind of bring your attention first all the way back to the beginning of this paragraph. So actually we'll start right here. And by now, there wasn't a single logistical aspect uncontrolled. The marchers had been instructed to bring no signs. Signs were provided. They have been told to sing one song, "We Shall Overcome." They had been told how to arrive, when, where to arrive, where to assemble, when to start marching, the route to march. First aid stations were strategically located, even where to faint. So one thing that I found so interesting was I actually took a trip to Atlanta last summer. And in Atlanta, I was able to see many, many civil rights sites. I saw where Dr. King was born. I saw his home where he was born. I saw where he was buried. And I also went to a really, really cool civil rights museum. And I wanted to show you some pictures that I took there. Okay, so these next pictures that I'll show you are from the museum that I visited, and this was the section in the museum about the March on Washington. This was one of my favorite pictures that I was able to see and take. If you take a look, this is unbelievable. So this was planning the March on Washington, and look at all these people down in the picture, and look at all the signs that they're making. So you can see that right here, we have a sign that says, we want schools integrated. And then over here, it says that we demand an end to like people being biased, like people being racist. And then I wish I could see, I don't really know. Oh, right here, you can just kind of, I can tell that it says like, we demand voting rights. So, they wanted to make sure that African Americans had the same opportunity to vote as white people did. And then this sign is upside down, but you can kind of see, if you kind of turn things, that you can see that, they also wanted jobs for everyone with equal pay. So it would not be, obviously, it would not be fair to pay African Americans less than what white workers make. And so these were kind of some of their demands that they were doing. I think all of these are very, very good demands, but it's very interesting that you weren't necessarily allowed to bring your own sign to the march. You could pick up a sign when you got there. And Malcolm X had a real problem with this. Another picture that I took when I was at the museum is this one, and it shows the route of the march. I don't know how many of you have ever been to Washington, D.C., but these monuments are still there, and you can go visit them. This picture over here is a really good picture. It kind of shows you like this thing right here is the Washington Monument, so that would be the same as what is right here. This large, like it kind of, I mean, it looks like a little, it kind of looks like a little lake, but it's really not. This right here. This is the reflecting pool, and actually it's really cool. On certain days, the Washington Monument like makes its reflection in the pool, so it's pretty cool. And then down here then is the Lincoln Memorial. This is where they had the speeches. This is where the I Had a Dream speech was given. And so then, as you saw in Mrs. Messner's video with the other article, down here is where all the people would have been standing. And all over, really, but the people could have been standing around here. You saw in Mrs. Messner's video that people were, it was a very hot day, and so people were, cooling themselves in the reflecting pool. But as you can see, the marchers didn't really have a say in the routes that they marched. As you can see from this diagram, you can see that the marchers were told that they needed to march in these directions. So I don't know where the starting point was. Oh, wait, I do. It says right here, the march begins right here. So, we'll leave the starting point. Some groups will go this way. Some groups will go this way. And then we march around here. We march around here. And so I think that Malcolm X just had a real problem with this. If these people were supposed to show up angry and upset and very, very outraged, the march should not be controlled to this extent. There's one more picture that I can show you, and it's really, really hard to see. I know it'll be really small on your screen. When I tried to make it bigger, it just got blurry. But this was amazing to me too. Like, I loved this diagram that I saw in the museum. So if you see here, and I'm just going to kind of point out the different things that Malcolm X said in his biography that he had a problem with. So along the route of the march, there were right here 24 first aid stations. This was really important because, remember, there were 250,000 people there at least, and if there are that many people gathering anywhere, at some point, someone is probably going to need some medical attention. It was a very hot day, so people might get overheated, they might get dehydrated, so this was very important. So we have first aid stations located along the route, which I actually think is a great idea. We also have different law enforcement officers. It says that we're going to help direct traffic. It's right here. Direct traffic and direct the participants in the march. And then this is what I love too. Look at, I don't know if you guys can see it. I really hope you can. So this was how they fed the people that were there. So So there were so many people there. They got sandwiches prepared by volunteers. They had different soft drinks and milk and hot dogs and stuff like that for people who came to the march. So that was also an aspect of the march that was controlled and that was not up to the marchers. Now, I personally, again, I feel this is a good idea. If you're going to gather all these people, they're going to need stuff to eat. Remember, this was in the 1960s, it wasn't like there was a Starbucks and a McDonald's on every corner that you could just stop in and get food. And then the last thing that I want to show you that is very important, it doesn't necessarily talk about, like, go with what Malcolm X was so upset about, but I really need to bring your attention to this right here. The number of march-related violent incidents that were reported. So, no, there were no violent incidents that were reported, and there were no crimes at all that were reported at the march. So, there were 250,000 people at least at the march, but they were peaceful the entire day. There were no fights. There was no violence. And it was a wonderful, peaceful protest, just like Dr. King and his other organizers had planned. Now, as we can see, Malcolm X certainly didn't agree with that way of handling things. So why do you think, finally going back to our question, why do you think Malcolm X kept repeating the words they were told? So, right here, they have been told similar, they had been told. Why does he keep repeating that? Why would he say that twice? The marchers had been instructed. So they had been told, they were told. That type of language was repeated 3 times. Why would Malcolm X need to repeat himself 3 times? He was an amazing writer. What is the point of the author repeating himself so many times? Think about that, and then I'll come back with my answer. Okay, so I think this is a really good question because it kind of has an answer that can apply to many different scenarios and a different passage, but the same thing. Anytime an author repeats him or herself, it's because the author wants to bring emphasis to something. In this case, Malcolm X wanted to bring emphasis to the fact that the protesters and the marchers, they did not have a say in their protest. This protest, Malcolm X feels, is something that should belong to them, something that they should own and have control over. And in fact, Malcolm X brings us to the attention that was not the case. The protesters didn't get to make their own signs, and they didn't get to chant the things that they wanted to chant because they were told to sing this certain song while they were marching and walking. They were told how to act when they got there. They were told where to be at different times. And so Malcolm X's point is that this wasn't truly the type of protest that he had envisioned that was really going to change things because of the fact that so many aspects of it were controlled. Now, I think if you look at this from another perspective, one might be able to argue that things had to be controlled because of the number of people that were there. 250,000 people is an incredible number of people. That's enormous. I mean, just think of it and maybe a number that some of you might understand. I believe that Ohio Stadium, where Ohio State plays their football games, I think that seats 110,000 people. So we're talking about 2 full Ohio stadiums plus more people. When you have that many people gathering anywhere, you have to have a plan. You have to have safety. You have to make sure that people are going to be okay. Malcolm X doesn't see it that way, though. Malcolm X sees this as the control being taken away from the people, and it was a march for the people. If they didn't get the say that he thought that they should have. He feels like it's a complete and total waste. So take a few seconds, pause the video, make sure that you write down this answer to number 7. All right, guys, last question for today. So let's take a look at the box that we have. It's got a number 8 at the bottom of it. It's on the bottom of the front page. And then we are looking at question number 8. So we want to know, what is the author's tone in the selected section? So we're not looking for the mood. We're not looking for how it makes you feel. We're not looking for how it makes the reader feel. That's mood. The tone is, what is the author's feeling about the subject that he's writing about. So this is an excellent passage from Malcolm X. I won't read it all to you, but I will start like just right here, because this is where you can really get the tone. Who ever heard of angry revolutionists swinging their bare feet together with their oppressor in lily pad park pools with gospels and guitars and I have a dream speeches? Hollywood couldn't have topped it. So what do you think Malcolm X is talking about when he, I mean, this reference comes out of nowhere. Hollywood? What? So I need you to think about it this way, because this is amazing that Malcolm X kind of is thinking about this. What are they known for in Hollywood? Like, what do people in Hollywood do? Well, we have actors and actresses, and they make movies there. And I need you to think about movies. Movies are made in Hollywood. Are movies real, or are they made up? Are they fake? They're fake. Remember, Malcolm X's whole deal with this is that this was fake. This was not real. So something I want to show you is right here. Angry revolutionists. So who do you think that refers to? And they're swinging their bare feet together with their oppressor. Oh boy, this is some excellent vocabulary for you guys. So who are the angry revolutionists? Well, the angry revolutionists would have been the people who are there to make the revolution, who are there to protest. So the angry revolutionists would have been, in this case, the African Americans that were there to protest, that were there to get their rights and make a change. And who are the oppressors? The oppressors in this case would have been white people that were there. Now, as you learned in the other article that you listened to or read with Mrs. Messner, all kinds of different people showed up at the March on Washington. It wasn't just for one group of people. There were African Americans and white people and Asians and if there were people of Indian descent. There were all kinds of people at this March on Washington. But what Malcolm X is telling us is that they came together for one day, for one fake day. The African Americans were there, locking arms with white people. And I don't think, listen, let's be honest. Do you think that that white people who were deeply racist are going to show up? Absolutely not. No way. So these would have been white people that also wanted integration and to end segregation. So they all show up together. These are the same people, Malcolm X says, that may not have fully been supportive all the time. And he is saying that this was like a Hollywood movie, completely fake, totally made up. What do you think then is the tone of this section? Write something down. You have to write something down. This probably shouldn't be one of the harder questions. My answers are that Malcolm X in this section over here was angry, frustrated, sarcastic, and disgusted. One of those is fine, but I just wanted to point out that there were many different answers, and maybe you had an answer different from mine, but maybe it was similar to one of these words over here. So as long as you have something written down, you guys will be awesome. I hope that you are really starting to understand this article, even though it's very difficult, and I hope that this is helping you. So this is just part 1 of the video, and we'll get to the back later. All right, talk to you guys later. Bye.